How many of you guys believe that a good picture is worth 1,000 words? I think we have quorum, so I better shut up, hit autoplay, and I'm out of here. So anyway, a little bit about me. I was going to thank the board, but Gary did already a great job. But Natalie is really an inspiring force here, and it's through her hard work, her talent, definitely, her generosity, because she puts a lot of time into this, that this is possible. And I think, she's phenomenal, and we had a great couple of days, and so I think we owe her another round of applause. So a little bit about me. I'm from Madrid. I've been living in Seattle already for 15 years almost. And photography and the natural world were a passion from very early on. I didn't think I was going to become a professional photographer. In fact, I thought I was going to be a scientist. I went to the university. I started studying forestry engineering. In Spain at that time, that involved a lot of planting trees for paper and cutting, and it was not what I wanted to do. I was dreaming I was going to become, I don't know, like a national park director or some kind of thing like that. Didn't work that way. I went into biology, and halfway through biology, I got a job as a photographer in the Spanish National Agency as a photojournalist. I didn't know anything about photography. I was an amateur. I loved taking photos. I stayed 4 years there, and through that, I really learned the profession. And then very rapidly, I realized that I could put those two passions together, nature and my concern for the environmental, the well state of the environment, and photography, and start working on that. And I contacted Greenpeace, the environmental group, and we got along very well very early on. And that has been, I think, 26 years already working for them. So always as a freelancer. But and interestingly, lately in my career, it's really the art scene that has taken over. So I'm going to show 3 different projects. I would like to get the lights down, if we can, please. There's 3 projects. One of them is the rainforest, which I've worked on since the year 2000. It's an ongoing project. I don't think I'm going to ever finish this one. The other one is the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. Luckily, that one is not ongoing anymore. It took them 3 months to cap that damn well, but at the end, they did. And the last one is a project around the ice, the Arctic, Iceland, Greenland. And I've been trying to figure out how to talk about my work, and don't ask me how I came up with this sentence, but I think the ice is melting, and soon it will be gone. Thank you. Thank you. And everything is linked around that. And I always thought that the job we try to do is to translate science into images. And so if I tell you that evaporation accounts for half of the rain that falls in the rainforest, and I show you this photo of the Amazon early in the morning where all the water is evaporating, that really helps to understand the concept. I've been documenting tropical rainforest for a decade and a half already, mostly with Greenpeace. But in 2009, I was the very lucky winner of the Prince Charles Rainforest Project. And that was an incredible project. It took me to the Amazon, to the Congo Basin, to Indonesia. And we made a book, a very limited edition book, only 500 copies were printed. And it's a book that Prince Charles gave to world leaders before the Climate Change Summit in Copenhagen. And we also printed 1 million booklets, which they guaranteed me was all FSC certified and coming from good sources, but 1 million, imagine the amount of paper that got distributed through the Commonwealth. And the whole goal of the project was to establish a very clear link between tropical deforestation and climate change and global warming. And we had exhibitions in London, in Paris, in Berlin, in New York. So tropical rainforests only cover 7% of the surface of the planet, but they store incredible amounts of carbon. And so they're a great buffer against climate change. And there's so many species that inhabit them, and the majority in numbers still unknown. Of course, we know all the big ones, but if you go into the insect world and the micro world, it's definitely, there's a lot that we don't know. And of course, on top of all that biodiversity, there's us, the most intelligent species around, though sometimes I have my doubts about that last statement. This is an Enawe Indian member in Brazil. They've lived in the same way for thousands of years, probably. They were only contacted in '74. Their world is changing really very rapidly. And it's changing because of us arriving in big numbers, and we are responsible for a lot of trouble. And us sometimes is these poor guys in Congo that don't have anything, they're working on a full exploitation, logging operation with 2 chainsaws. That's the only thing they have. They don't have electricity, they don't have any kind of water apart from the river, they don't have shoes, they don't have earplugs, they don't have anything, they don't have any protection. And you go from these very poor logging operations to then big ones, like in the Amazon, big companies and a lot of wood being extracted, a lot of it illegally. This was in Brazil, in Pará state, where 40% of the logging occurs. An area of the size of France has been logged in the Amazon already. That's over 300,000 square miles. And a lot of this is used for pulp and paper. This is in Indonesia, one of the biggest plants to produce pulp and paper in the world. And many times I get asked, what can we do? And what can we do? It's always very small steps, but if everybody thinks in the same direction, if when you get a coffee in the morning, you bring your own cup instead of getting a paper cup. I was reading the other day that Starbucks uses 4 billion cups per year in the US, and 90% of that is not recycled. So the way the forests are clear, normally the most valued species are taken out, and then it's a process of burning and cutting and burning and cutting. And at the end, it makes me think of a war scene. Nothing is left. It's a total destruction. At the end, the land will be clear for agriculture. And we lose, a lot of biodiversity, like also through the bush meat trading. This is in Congo also. And we're replacing all this with monocultures. And for example, this is taken in Brazil. The Brazilian commercial cattle herd has over 200 million heads. It's the biggest in the world. So one of the biggest problems for climate change is really the cattle industry, the fact that we all consume meat. If I tell you that 4 years ago, this was pristine rainforest in Mato Grosso state, the pilot that flew me here was telling me, I can't believe this. I used to fly here. It was on the approach to the small airport where we were, and he was saying this was just pure forest. There was nothing here, So suddenly, and livestock, the figures vary depending on where you read it, but there's 18% of carbon emissions worldwide. If we stop deforestation and became vegetarians or ate way less meat, we definitely will cut at least half of the emissions. And I definitely try to eat very little meat now, just because of everything I see. It's tough to keep at it. But another incredible statistic in Brazil, in the Amazon, 40% of the wood ends being used to make charcoal. So these are ovens to make charcoal. And talking about coal, that's another problem. This is a mine in Kalimantan, in Indonesia. And the tailpons of mines, toxic wood, which sometimes create these images that are almost beautiful until you really understand the nature of the problem. And this is something that now in my career, it's becoming it's happening more often. It's the fact that I create images that are sometimes more abstract, more beautiful, sometimes more difficult to understand. And through that relation with the print, I'm trying to bring the audience to question, what's happening. And the power of photography is definitely very, very important. When I was working in Brazil with Greenpeace, one of the best ways to monitor deforestation was to look at satellite imagery. And one day we discovered this huge area. It was 1,700 hectares illegally logged in public land. And when Greenpeace started to pull the story and find information, it was the president of the Agricultural Producers Association that illegally logged this gentleman, to call him something, Mr. José Donizete Pires de Oliveira. And so these guys decided to go and make a stage of protest, and they unfurled a banner in the land, and I was in a little plane taking photos, and suddenly that pickup truck that you see there next to the banner started driving on top, and I was telling the pilot, call them, what are they doing? They're going to ruin my picture. But definitely it wasn't them. It was Mr. Donizete that wasn't happy with the protesters there, and he did a pretty good job. But unknown to him, the following week, this is Veja, is the biggest magazine in Brazil. It's second in circulation to Time, at least at that time. And when this got published, Mr. Donizetti ended in jail. And the headline there says, first the rainforest and then the banner. No? So the guy destroys everything. I have a bit of a mixed feeling about photo competitions. We live in a world where everything is competing against each other. But on the other hand, I've had the chance to win several of them and also to be a jury in many. And it's a bit of a lottery because the process is so fast, but they definitely helped me a lot in my career. So when people ask me, what can help me, definitely photo competitions have been very useful for me. And this is a funny story. I shot in 2005 a drought in the Amazon, a very big drought that happened. And a friend of mine, Tom Stoddard, very good British photojournalist, saw the work and he said, you need to send this to the World Press Photo. I hadn't sent photos to a contest in my life. And I didn't, and a week before the deadline, he called me and he said, have you? And I said, I didn't. And he said, well, you do it, don't be an idiot. And I got an award. So I won a World Press Photo with this. And I'm going to show 3 or 4 photos. But for you to get an idea, the lower right bottom there, you have a small tree. So this is a river and sand dunes developing on the margin of the river, but the scale is incredible once you realize that. And low water, low oxygen, so millions of dead fish, lots of health problems. The river is everything for the local populations. It's the transportation, it's the source of water, it's the source of food. And the water receded everywhere. So lakes, for example, started to dry up, and you get like a small, probably what was the water receding, a small pool of water where the canoe still stayed floating and the tracks of the animals that were coming to drink. And my favorite photo of the whole project is a river boat. You see many of these in the Amazon. It got trapped, and the water kept receding, and the guys I don't know if you can see them, but they're on the boat. So they got stuck there, and they probably spent, 2-3 months waiting for the level to raise. And National Geographic Traveler was doing a story on climate change, and they invited Al Gore to write a piece on it. And so he was visiting the society, and they took him to the layout room. The magazine wasn't out yet, and he saw this photo on the wall, and he really liked it a lot. And so he got a copy, and they called me that day from the magazine saying he wants to use your work. You need to talk with his office. And so later in his projections of An Inconvenient Truth, he got to use my images just because of the fact that he was there that day, And I was talking about awards, and the following year I got a second World Press Photo for this image, which I didn't think was so special, but definitely put the print of men, the shadow of the plane where I was, in front of a vanished forest. So a lot of work that I've done, especially in my latest trips to Brazil, I've been around the Belo Monte Dam and the dam construction, and this is a dead forest after a dam has been flooded and the trees are just all dying. And it's, again, a more abstract or artistic view of the destruction. It's a different way of communicate. I don't know if it's more efficient or not, but it definitely allows me to interact with a different crowd that sometimes are not so interested in talking about these issues. And it also gives a more permanence to the project. So when I publish things, the media consumes everything super rapidly. Well, if you get the chance to put this in a gallery or in a museum, the conversation is going to be there later. So these are just piles of earth being removed for the dam construction and all the tracks. And also a lot of canals are being constructed and the trees are cut. And it creates some pretty interesting images where you get to see, it almost looks like the dead forest is floating in the water. It's pretty shallow, and you see the clouds reflected on the water. And sometimes I feel almost like a poet. It's creating a metaphor of what's happening. And some of these images are definitely very powerful. But I always say it's still a beautiful place, and I don't want to depress everybody. What I want is people to enjoy that and see that other side also, because it's very important that we make an effort to protect it. I'm the guy with the cheap suit up there, but this is the one on the left is the book we did for Prince Charles, and that's the booklet also. But that was an incredible experience. I was one day in Seattle, I got a phone call, and the following day I was on a plane and received in a private audience in Palace with Prince Charles, and got to show him all my work. And that year we met 4 times until the book was done. But anyway, the Deepwater Horizon, if you remember, it was April 20th, 2010. I always like to say there were 11 guys that died, and 17 injured, and it really affected the lives and the future of the whole Gulf. And by the end of April, till July 5th, when they managed to cap this, around 5 million barrels of oil were released. So even if Natalie did a better job than me documenting the Exxon Valdez, I can always say this one was 20 times bigger. And my approach was really a more classical photojournalistic approach at the beginning. And we had all the birds also, like a laughing gull in a rescue center in Fort Jackson in Louisiana, getting washed. And the pelicans also, of course. And they've been used by Patagonia in one of their Vote for the Environment campaigns. But the spill started to take a life on its own, and it was horrific and scary, but at the same time strangely beautiful. And this day was May 18th, and of the 2 months I spent working on this project, only one I got to see those colors in the water. And this is shot in the middle of the day with a polarizer. And I don't know if it's a day they used a lot of that corexit dispersant, and there was a lot of chemical in the water, but the colors were crazy that day. And this assignment started like a 4-day assignment for Greenpeace, and I was saying I stayed 28 days on the first round, and then I ended coming twice also. So in total, I spent 2 months out there. And somebody got the bright idea that to clean the oil, the best thing was to burn it. So they did 411 surface burns. And I couldn't see what got precipitated underwater, but definitely what I smelled up there was horrible. And then the opportunities with this kind of work, for example, the Library of Congress bought this print to keep in their permanent collection. One of the images I wanted to create for the project was the corexit being sprayed, and it was pretty complicated to find a plane doing this because they wouldn't tell us. And then, of course, we were in a little Cessna, and this 4-engine aircraft was way faster. So I used to say it was chasing a Ferrari on a bicycle. No, we were really very slow. So it was just the pilot trying to figure out where they're going to come, and then if we were lucky. But some of these images really got published a lot, and I'm already going to apologize to Jason because I didn't bring the Orion cover with the pelicans. But this is the New Yorker that did a big article on the spill and opened with my photo. And this is the project that brought me to the art world. And many times I get asked, how do I get to put my work in the art world, and I really don't have a clue. That's the straight answer. But there's a funny anecdote. I'm at home one day, and the phone rings, and I hear a nice lady on the phone that said, "Daniel, this is Catherine Edelman." And I'm, "Yes." She said, "I want to do a show with your work on the spill." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "You don't have a clue who I am, no?" And I said, "No, I absolutely know." Well, Catherine Edelman, she's the president of the International Art Dealer Association. She has a gallery in Chicago, and she's very, very well known in the art world. No? And we've become very good friends, and she's been my main dealer for a long time. So lots of these images are so abstract that you really don't know what you're looking at. This is the path made from a boat, and the agitation from the propeller, probably with a lot of that chemical on the water, create that almost orange fluorescence. And they're so abstract sometimes, again, that if I put them in an art gallery, people walk in and say, "Who's the painter?" And this was probably the best of all. It won the Wildlife Photographer of the Year in 2011, which was incredible because it's the award given by the BBC and the Natural History Museum in London. So BP used to be a sponsor of the contest. So the fact that a contest that's really very classical in the beauty of nature suddenly chose a photo like this of a group of pelicans covered in oil, and a problem coming from a British company was definitely very brave. I was really lucky to get that, and that opened to many exhibitions. This is the Seattle Aquarium. We had more than 500,000 visitors in 6 months. If you're from here, you recognize there Jeff Renner, who just, Seattle King 5 weatherman, who just announced he's retiring this week. Great guy. And we had shows all over the place. This is in Barcelona, or in Catherine Edelman Gallery in Chicago. And I was also very lucky to be selected by the Pre-Pictet, and so they brought images from the spill in museums and galleries all over the world for a year and a half. So the next part of the project, I've called it ice, but it's basically what I was saying before. You know, it's melting, and it's melting very rapidly. So it's the impact we're having on the ice. No? My first assignment was in '97, and I went up to the Arctic to photograph global warming, climate change. I had no clue what I was going to photograph, and I got very lucky. This is a double spread in Time magazine. I've been accused of photoshopping this so many times. The story behind this, it's two walrus were sitting on that ice floe, where 3 of them were sitting on the ice floe, and we approached with the dinghy, and 2 jumped in the water. And they must have been there for a long time because the ice was melting, and so the whole thing raised, and it stayed like this, I don't know, 30 seconds, and then it just broke. And so this image really became iconic, and I was even more lucky because the Greenpeace ship was behind, and they were very happy to get that air. I've never spent much time in Antarctica, but I was in the Ross Sea, and I got the chance to photograph icebergs, and it's really one of the most incredible landscapes you can think of. And the ice from above, that's the tabular iceberg. The area of ice above the water might be 100 or 150 feet, but it's just amazing. And the wildlife, as you saw before, is just incredible. And like this bear, are you guys awake? Or so, unless he escaped from the Oakland Zoo, you know, I'm pretty sure I got this one in the Arctic. But so let's move up to the Arctic. Yeah, but they're incredible animals, no, so powerful, and you know they don't have any predators, so they're not scared. And in talking about the Arctic, you know, in 2012 was the lowest sea ice ever on record in the summer. And I joined an expedition to the north, and we were expecting that was going to happen, and it did. And again, scary images, but also gorgeous. And you get to see the melting through the ice floes from the air. Okay, and let's move to Iceland. And I start with Iceland, but the idea was I always wanted to photograph Greenland. But working in Greenland is very expensive. And in 2014, I finally secured some funds. I received a big award from a bank in Spain, the BBVA, and I also have a donor that helped this project take place. But having Iceland so close to Greenland, I decided to start in Iceland. And the landscape from the air were also incredible. This is a river, and of all these series, the only photo that gets a little bit of sense of scale, because if you look closely on the right, there's some tracks probably from a quad on that piece of earth, but it's just water flowing, loaded with silt and layers of dark volcanic acids under. It's also from the air. All is underwater here, so if you look at a print or you look closely, you get to see the ripples on the surface, but it's all like blurry under. Really an incredible landscape, but it's one of the fastest warming places on the planet, up to 4 times the average of the Northern Hemisphere. So they have 300 plus glaciers that cover more than 10% of the islands, and they're losing an average of 11 billion tons of ice per year. This is also another picture that I like. This is the side of a mountain where ashes from the volcano have landed. And when you look at this, it's pretty confusing because there's like shadows in different directions, but what it is the wind blowing the ashes. And depending on where the prevailing winds, that move the ashes one way or the other. And the rivers, when they spread, they come down from the mountains, and then the valleys are very flat, and you get to see these rivers spreading over the dark sand, and they're absolutely stunning. And even today, when I look at these images, I don't know very well what I was photographing. They're very difficult to understand. You know, it could be anything. It could be, I don't know, a microscopic image of some tissue. I don't know. So Iceland ice cap, the largest in Europe outside of Greenland, have lost already 6% since '95. And the melt rates speed up, you know, climate change intensifies, and they feed off each other, and so Iceland could lose 30% of its ice by 2050. So, you know, I was talking about fine art, but sometimes I also try to engage people with my work using social media, and I really got a kick out of this one a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you get to read the comment at the bottom. But somebody reposted this. I don't know who those people are. So they picked my photo, they reposted it, and there you go. But at the end of the day, I loved it because on one hand, you know, it's phenomenal that you get young people that suddenly are touched by something and they're excited about it. And finally, Greenland. So this is, I'm almost done. Last Tuesday, there was an article on the Washington Post saying that Greenland is experiencing a record-breaking level of melt so early in the season, and 12% of the ice sheet was already covered with water this year, in April. The Jacobson Glacier in Ilulissat that loses, I lost 20 kilometers of ice in 20 years, so it's really shedding ice like crazy. They think the iceberg that sank the Titanic came from here. Oops, sorry. And Greenland has doubled its ice mass loss in the last decade. But still, from an abstract point of view, the images are stunning. You know, when you look at a glacier from above and you see these fractures and water in them, it's really a gorgeous landscape. And there's rivers crossing the ice sheet all over the place, unfortunately. And we were talking before, Alistair was talking about white and blue, and in Greenland we have a lot of dark also. The dark snow, which is a mixture of soot from forest fires, pollutants, coal plants, and algae that develops also. And then suddenly fractures also that are created in the ice sheet, and I love to talk with some scientists about this because I don't know very well what I'm looking at, and I don't know if it's the stress of the ice sheet that starts breaking, but it creates these parallel patterns, and they're really striking. And then you can see there's some puddles like are in the blue, there's some like round areas, and I assume that the water melted and then flooded away and stayed there like in small pools, and that's why you get these marks, and then you got flooded again. And then there's the cryoconite, which is this black material that gets deposited in those pools. And if you get to see this closely, you see that where it's black, it starts sinking, and it's just melting all around it, no? And it helps melt like a speed 3 times, you know, the speed of melting. And the ice is melting at a pace never seen before, and everybody's talking about this now, and we make predictions, and it gets worse and worse. And so in 2012, the ice sheet lost 562 gigatons or billions of tons of fresh water to the ocean. So that raised the sea level in 1 millimeter worldwide, you know. And the predictions are that if this keeps going and we don't stop what we're doing, it's going to be up to 70 feet when it all goes, no? So if sea level only went up 20 feet, less than a third of that, the big majority of the cities in the world on the coast will be underwater, no? Well, I hope you like the work. If you don't, there's a friend of mine that gets pretty pissed. And this is a project also. Greenpeace asked me to shoot, they needed images of a gorilla, and they didn't have funds to send me to Africa, so I was in Amsterdam, and I ended in a primate park called Appenhall, and I got this shot of a gorilla eating an onion. I don't know if you didn't like the 500 millimeter or the flash, but it definitely doesn't look very happy. But I like to joke with this image because at the end of the day, it became a huge campaign for them, and they made a big banner that they will hang in logging operations and in companies, and the text was, "Hands off my forest home." So if there's any piece of advice I can give, it's very simple. It's follow your passion, work hard, do what makes you tick. Really find a project that you're passionate about. Help your peers. That's why we're all here, and enjoy life, because at the end of the day, it's a very short ride. Thank you very much.